Three students are discussing the role of AI in university assignments. They debate whether AI makes cheating easier, how it can support learning, the importance of academic honesty, and how universities should adapt assessment methods to the growing use of AI.
I'm still worried about using AI in university assignments. Tools like ChatGPT can make it very easy for students to avoid doing their own work, and I'm not sure how lecturers can always tell whether an assignment is genuinely original.
I understand the concern, but I think AI can be useful when it's used properly. Students can use it to brainstorm ideas, organize arguments, explain difficult topics, or summarize information. I see it more like a powerful research assistant than a replacement for learning. The important thing is that students still understand the material and make their own decisions about what to include.
I agree that universities probably shouldn't simply ban AI because it's already becoming part of education and future workplaces. Instead, students should be taught how to use these tools responsibly and ethically. Universities could create clear rules explaining when AI is allowed, what kind of assistance is acceptable, and when using AI to produce the actual work would count as academic misconduct.
But where should we draw the line? If a student asks AI to write an entire essay and then makes a few changes, are they really learning anything? I'm worried this could create two groups of students, those who develop strong academic and critical thinking skills themselves, and those who mainly become good at giving instructions to AI.
That's why I think universities may need to change the way they assess students. Instead of relying only on traditional essays, they could include more presentations, interviews, oral examinations, or supervised tasks. These methods would require students to explain their ideas directly and demonstrate that they actually understand the subject rather than simply submitting AI-generated work.
Exactly. Assignments could also require students to analyze AI-generated information and then improve or challenge it using their own research. For example, AI could help create an initial outline, but the student would need to check the information, identify weaknesses, and develop the final argument independently. That would turn AI into a learning tool rather than a shortcut.
I still feel that universities need to be very careful. If students become too dependent on AI, they may learn information only superficially and lose the ability to solve problems independently.
I think we've reached a reasonable conclusion. AI can offer useful support and prepare students for modern workplaces, but academic honesty and independent thinking must remain important. The best approach is to combine responsible AI use with clear rules, better assessment methods, and strong communication from professors. The goal should be to use AI to improve learning without allowing it to replace learning.
Three people are discussing how to improve a university tutorial after reviewing a previous discussion about the economic impact of climate change. They talk about the discussion being scattered, limited participation, preparation, and ways to make future tutorials clearer and more interactive.
I felt yesterday's tutorial was a little scattered. We started with the economic impact of climate change, but then moved quickly between different topics without going deeply into any of them. I also noticed that only a few students participated, especially during the discussion about renewable energy. Maybe we could prepare specific questions or roles so that more people have a chance to contribute.
That's useful feedback. My intention was to give everyone a broad overview of the economic issues, knowing that we'd study the details in lectures. However, I agree that I introduced too many smaller topics too quickly. For the next tutorial, I could give students some short research points beforehand or ask everyone to prepare one question about the topic. That would give the discussion a clearer starting point.
I think that would really help. Sometimes I want to participate but I'm not sure what to say or where to begin. If I came to the tutorial with a question or a specific point already prepared, I'd feel much more confident about joining the conversation. I also found the section about changes in farming interesting, so perhaps we could spend more time on a few important topics instead of covering too many areas.
I agree. We could focus on fewer topics and give students more opportunities to discuss them. Another useful idea would be to have a short 2-minute discussion at the end of each tutorial. Students could ask final questions or mention anything they still don't understand. That would help us clear up problems immediately instead of waiting until the next class.
Those are excellent suggestions. I'll include them in our plan for future tutorials. I think giving students some preparation before class, encouraging everyone to participate, and leaving a little time for final questions could make the discussions much more focused. It's important that students feel comfortable sharing their ideas because active participation can improve understanding.
I really like these changes. Having something prepared before the tutorial would make it easier to participate, while focusing on fewer topics would make the discussion easier to follow. The short question period at the end would also be helpful because sometimes we understand the main discussion but still have one or two small doubts.
Exactly. I think the main goal should be to make tutorials more organized without making them less interactive. If everyone comes prepared with a question or idea, and the professor guides the discussion around a few key topics, we can have deeper conversations and hear more different opinions. It's great that you're open to our feedback because it makes us feel that our suggestions can actually improve the learning experience.
Three students are discussing a guest lecture on AI ethics that made a strong impression on them. They talk about data privacy, algorithmic bias, ethical challenges, the speaker's presentation style, and how the lecture changed their views about their own studies and future careers.
I was really impressed by Dr. Chen's lecture on AI ethics. Her discussion of data privacy and the responsibility involved in developing AI systems was thought-provoking. I especially liked how she presented a balanced view instead of simply supporting or criticizing new technology. The lecture actually made me rethink my own research project, and I'm now considering adding an ethical section to the technical work I had planned.
I completely agree. What stood out to me was her explanation of algorithmic bias. We've discussed the concept in our computer science classes, but her real-world examples made it much easier to understand. She showed how biased systems can unintentionally affect vulnerable communities. I also liked the Q&A session because she didn't avoid difficult or controversial questions and encouraged an open discussion.
For me, the presentation style was just as impressive as the content. She explained a complicated topic in a way that even students without a technology background could understand. Her answers during the Q&A were detailed and respectful, which made the whole lecture feel more like a conversation than a traditional presentation.
Exactly. The lecture showed me that technological development can't be separated from ethical responsibility. I had originally planned to focus only on the technical side of machine learning, but now I want to consider questions about privacy, fairness, and the effects of technology on society. It reminded me that innovation should not only be about creating powerful systems but also about using them responsibly.
That's what made the lecture so valuable. AI ethics isn't just a computer science issue, it involves law, philosophy, sociology, and many other areas. I've already signed up for the follow-up workshop because I want to explore some practical solutions in more detail. I think understanding these different perspectives will be important for anyone working with technology in the future.
I feel the same way. The lecture also made me realize how quickly areas like data protection and technology law are changing. There are going to be many new challenges for lawyers and policymakers, but that also makes the field exciting. It gave me a much clearer idea of how my studies could connect with emerging technology.
Absolutely. It was one of those lectures that didn't just give us information but actually changed the way we think. Dr. Chen encouraged us to question assumptions, consider different perspectives, and think critically about the consequences of innovation. I'm really glad I attended, and I hope the university invites more speakers like her because a strong guest lecture can have a lasting impact on students.
Two students and a professor are discussing a university debate about the use of AI in academic writing. They discuss academic honesty, accessibility, critical thinking, assessment methods, and the need for clear rules about responsible AI use.
I'm still thinking about the debate on AI in academic writing. My biggest concern is whether students are really learning if AI writes their essays for them. University assignments are supposed to show what we understand and how we can think independently. If students rely too much on AI, they may avoid the difficult process of organizing ideas, choosing the right words, and developing their own arguments. I'm worried this could weaken critical thinking and communication skills.
I understand that concern, but I also think AI can be a useful tool when it's used responsibly. For students who don't speak English as their first language or have learning difficulties, AI can help with grammar, brainstorming, and understanding difficult ideas. It can also save time on basic writing tasks, allowing students to spend more time on deeper research and analysis. So, instead of seeing AI only as a shortcut, we should consider how it can make learning more accessible.
I agree with that. The debate made me realize that AI could change the way we complete assignments. However, students still need to develop their own ideas and understand the subject. In my history class, we already have oral presentations and debates, and those activities require us to think and respond immediately. AI can't simply give us an answer when we have to explain our ideas in person.
Exactly. Maybe universities shouldn't simply ban AI but should redesign some assignments. Students could be asked to conduct original research, develop unique arguments, or analyze AI-generated information and identify its strengths and weaknesses. This would make students think critically about the content instead of copying it.
That sounds useful, but there are still practical problems. How can professors tell whether students are using AI appropriately or simply cheating? Another concern is fairness. Some students may have access to expensive and advanced AI tools, while others may only have limited free versions. If universities expect students to use AI, everyone should have fair access to the same resources.
I agree that these issues don't have simple solutions. Universities will need clear policies explaining what kind of AI use is acceptable and what counts as academic misconduct. Students should also be taught how to use these tools ethically, including checking information, acknowledging AI assistance when required, and making sure their final work represents their own understanding.
Exactly. I think the main question is not whether AI will be used, because it is already part of education and work, but how we use it responsibly. AI can improve efficiency and accessibility, but students still need independent thinking, creativity, and academic honesty. If universities find the right balance between technology and traditional learning, AI could become a useful educational tool rather than a replacement for genuine learning.
Three students are discussing whether to appeal a grade at university. They talk about unclear feedback, meeting the professor, collecting evidence, and following the formal appeal process.
I'm thinking about appealing my grade in my History of Modern Art class. I received a C+ on my final essay, but I honestly expected a B or even an A. I followed the assignment rubric carefully, used relevant examples, and cited my sources properly. What bothers me most is that the feedback was very vague. The professor simply wrote lack depth, but didn't explain which parts were weak or why I lost so many marks. Since the grade affects my GPA, I feel I should at least find out what went wrong.
I understand why you're frustrated, but appealing a grade can sometimes be a long and complicated process. Before you officially appeal, I think you should speak to the professor. If you explain your concerns calmly, they might be able to clarify the feedback or even realize that something in your essay was overlooked. If the explanation still doesn't make sense, then you can consider taking the next step and making a formal appeal.
I agree. The first thing is to arrange a meeting with the professor and ask specific questions about the grade. Don't just say that you think the mark is too low. Show them parts of your essay and explain how they match the assignment requirements and rubric. Sometimes students misunderstand the grading criteria, but sometimes a professor may have missed an important part of the work.
That makes sense. I can show the professor how I analyzed post-war art movements, especially abstract expressionism and pop art. I included specific examples and references, so I want to understand what they meant by lack depth. I've already saved the assignment prompt, the rubric, my essay, and the feedback. I just don't want the professor to think I'm complaining or challenging their authority. I'm worried that appealing the grade could damage our relationship.
That's a reasonable concern, but you can avoid that by staying professional and focusing only on the academic issues. If the meeting doesn't resolve the problem, then prepare a formal appeal carefully. Include the original assignment, the grading rubric, your submitted essay, the professor's feedback, and any relevant communication. The stronger your evidence is, the easier it will be for someone reviewing the appeal to understand why you believe the grade may have been unfair.
Exactly. You should present the appeal as a request for a fair academic review, not as an emotional complaint. Point out specific sections of your essay that meet the rubric and explain why you believe they may not have been properly considered. Also, be open to constructive feedback if there are genuine weaknesses in your work.
I feel much better about it now. I'll start by arranging a meeting with the professor and asking for a detailed explanation of the grade. If I still feel that the assessment doesn't match the rubric after that discussion, I'll consider making a formal appeal. I'll keep all my documents organized and make sure my arguments are based on clear evidence rather than emotion. Thanks for helping me think this through.